Hello and welcome to the Large and Unnecessary First Player Token podcast. This is episode 97. My name is Chris.
My name is David.
My name is Pawel.
What are you eating, Pawel?
Eating some sort of chocolate thing.
Those are my chocolate things, I think you'll find.
Quite okay.
It's not delicious Pawelek, is it?
Is it Pawelek?
No, Pawelek is much better and also alcoholic. Can I just say I'm high on vaping gas?
You're such a drama queen, man.
It's like we're sitting here in the unnecessary headquarters and the room is filled with this vaping stuff. I mean, I can hardly see anything.
It's not going to kill you.
No, but I can't see much. Right, well, I'm the only person who's going to breathe normally today.
Still can't believe that you won't have a go at Dave's. I mean, it's basically water.
It's just, I have my principles. My body is a temple of some sort of dubious deities. I'm not going to partake in this, in this, it's just, no. Because it's one step closer to a full addiction to, like, the most ridiculous toxic stuff you can imagine. It's just, that's how it starts, man.
Let Pawel be an example to everyone.
Indeed.
You know, don't give in to peer pressure.
Be like Pawel.
Be like Pawel. That's a new podcast motto.
That's yes.
Be like Pawelek. Alcoholic chocolate.
That's what it is.
Anyway, how are you doing, guys?
I'm like Pawelek.
Good.
I'm awesome, obviously.
I'm glad to hear it. Well, we're here to talk about some video games this week.
Well, that's why I'm here, because when you guys do, like, board games and stuff, you never invite me in anymore. I'm mostly just discarded when it's board game episodes. Sometimes I'm not even told when they're taking place.
This is such a lie, Pawel.
This
is a lie.
I'm the podcast's second rate citizen.
We start talking about board games and you just completely tune out.
But no, that's not true. It's just for some reason role-playing games aren't really featuring anymore.
You haven't offered us any role-playing games.
There's like
Pawel.
so much stuff
you haven't
out there.
offered. You've got to offer these things. You've got to say to us, guys, I've got a role-playing game I want to talk about. And then that's when we can say no.
Okay, well, we'll try it next time. We'll try it.
Tell you what, you bring a role-playing game to the next board games episode.
And we're going to say no to it.
We'll save a space for that. It's probably about time.
Wow, it's only been like a year and a half.
I want one that you've actually played this time, though.
Okay.
I don't want one where you just read the book and you want to talk about the delicious setting.
Man, I play a lot of role-playing games all around. As well as read some of the stuff that I never get to
that's
play.
What that's what you mostly do, Pawel.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Anyway.
It's the same with video games, man. You got your Steam library and half of it you've never really played.
That's true. I am guilty of that.
But we're still the authority to talk about it.
We're definitely the authority to talk about weird Steam games, I think.
Yeah.
Although, we'll have to be careful about calling ourselves an authority.
No. I think this is established by now.
When we've been told off, honestly.
Oh,
we've been told off for claiming these things.
Well, I suppose we don't have that many weird games today either. But we don't have anything AAA either, do we?
Not as such, but we do have... Well, we've got something that was AAA.
Yep.
From a couple of years back, but Dave's going to talk about that later. Something we already talked about in the podcast. It's Metal Gear Solid 5, but we'll talk about that later, because first up, we're going to talk about Pathfinder Kingmaker.
Hey!
And I should probably say that this episode's going to be very
vapey.
Touching on subjects, touching on games, but not really getting into depth with them, because I think we've got into a situation where we've all kind of played games this week, but not really got that far into them. And Pathfinder Kingmaker is definitely one of them. And this is a Kickstarter, which, Pawel, you were a part of.
Yeah.
Yes, but you've not actually... you have installed the game.
No, can I just say that because Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire is the best game ever in this particular genre, To the point where when I was all excited about, hey, Pathfinder just came out, and I installed it and started making my character, and realized that I can't really even be bothered going through this because I just want to play Pillars of Eternity 2 again. So it's a problem.
What? Why are we not talking about Pillars of Eternity 2 then?
I'm sure we've already extensively talked about it, but I'm more than happy to talk about it yet again.
Have we done that before?
Was the piratey one the...
Was I on that episode?
You may have not been. Unless you were there and you just spaced out. Thank you for that, man. Thank you.
I'm sure Pawel's talked about this at least twice.
It's like the best RPG game out there, and you just... Oh, man. Your face is blank.
I don't remember this.
All my work gone for not... Tell you what, so I think we're just going to talk about Pillars of Eternity 2 then. Just for Dave. Maybe.
No, I want to hear about Pathfinder.
Oh, man.
Kingmaker?
Yeah, well done, Dave. Well remembered. Yeah, Pathfinder Kingmaker. So yes, it is in that same genre, isn't it, Pawel?
Well, if you call...
No, there's a name for this. What did they call it? For these Baldur's Gate style.
Oh,
RPGs.
Isometric team-based...
Yeah, there's some names, classic RPGs they call them.
I suppose, yeah.
CRPG.
Yeah.
So is this what
this
Pathfinder
is basically
Kingmaker
what Pathfinder Kingmaker is,
right.
but there is a twist in it, and it's a part of the game that I've not got to yet. But it's the whole Kingmaker part, because one of the things about this game, and yes, you're right, it is a CRPG. It's an isometric role-playing game where you're basically making up a squad of people and running about like you do in Divinity and you do in Pillars of Eternity.
And a number of others.
There's
been a revival of these games, which I'm really happy about.
Yeah, there definitely has. But the whole thing about this is that you actually are supposed to build a kingdom and manage it at some point. Did you know this, Pawel?
I seem to recall a Kickstarter update about this at some point, but I wasn't probably paying much attention.
So there's a kingdom management aspect to this game.
Wow, okay, that's pretty cool.
Now, as you can imagine, it's a Pathfinder game. Okay,
it's still not as cool as managing your ship when you're traversing the Deathfire Archipelago, but yeah, you go on.
Thanks, Pawel. Thanks for this.
It's okay, man.
Is this what this is going to be? Are you just going to butt in and tell me how this is better? This is worse than Pillars.
I've not played the Kingmaker yet, and still I am going to do that, yes.
Well, you've got as far as character creation. Now, when you get into the character creation, like I say, this is a Pathfinder game and it uses the Pathfinder system. Okay, so if you've played the Pathfinder tabletop RPG, it uses that system in this game. And once you get past that character creation, the character creation in Pathfinder can be quite long and drawn out.
Daunting?
It can be daunting. If you don't understand the Pathfinder system, you're going to probably be very confused. Especially if you do what I did and go a spellcasting class. Because you do have to pick spells and stuff, and it can be a bit overwhelming if you don't really understand what's going on. It's not as easy as something like Divinity, for example. When you're creating a character in that, it's not as straightforward as that. So be warned. You've created your character, Pawel. I created my character, and then I played the first sort of bit of the game, the first section of the game, really. And I was put off by it.
Because it wasn't as good as the Deathfire.
I've not played it, Pawel, so don't ask me that.
But I know it, but okay.
It didn't really draw me in, and I created my character, and I went a wizard, and for some reason I went an illusionist wizard.
That's so unlike you. You normally go for the glass cannon thingy. Let's have a rocket launcher.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love those kind of classes. Yeah. The ones that will just die easily but can do shitloads of damage. I mean, I suppose a wizard is kind of that, but I decided to take a little sort of twist on it and went an illusionist wizard because I thought, let's see how this kind of thing works in a game like this, like in a video game. Because in a tabletop RPG setting, if you're an illusionist wizard,
you can do quite a lot because there's no limits.
There's no limits. You can describe all sorts of weird things that you could be doing and stuff. And in a game like this, I wanted to see how it did that. I mean, it's just using video game mechanics. So it's basically my illusionist wizard can do things like blinding people and, stunning them and all that sort of thing, making weird things happen. But
so you're a support character to your...
Yeah, mainly a support character, right. Yeah. But you are playing as... you can, I should say you can go as a pre-made character in this game. I'm not entirely sure how that works. Are those the characters
from the actual campaign? Because Pathfinder is all about this pre-made sort of characters and a campaign that goes on through books and books, yeah?
Yes, definitely at least one of them is. Amiri the Barbarian is one that I have definitely seen. And in fact, that image, her portrait picture, has been used several times through several Pathfinder books that I've seen. So yeah, she is in it.
Okay.
There are other sort of characters in the game as well. I can't remember off the top of my head which ones you can actually play as, but I think they are mainly the people that you sort of meet as you go through the game. I'm pretty sure that you can play as those people. Now, as I was saying, yeah, I played the sort of first bit of the game and I was underwhelmed by it. And the first thing that I've written down here in my notes about this game is annoying voice acting. Right?
Oh yeah.
I've got used to it now, okay? Because I'm saying I played the sort of first bit of the game and stopped playing it, but I did go back and play some more, and I'm glad that I did, because it has picked up. But some of the voice acting in this game is just grating.
Is it like annoying bad, as in badly done, or is it just annoying sort of out of context?
It's just... It's hard to really put my finger on it. I just think it's too... it's not gritty, if you see what I mean. It's not like it's a gritty RPG thing, you know.
All right.
I'm going to kill everyone. It's nothing like that or anything like that. But something like there's a character in it, Lindsay, who is a bard, who's actually the storyteller of this game. Oh. So the actual game is like when things come up that are written like in journals and stuff, they're written from her point of view because she's telling the story of you. Okay.
All right.
But she does this annoying thing. Like, I can't remember the exact words that she says, but sometimes when it's her turn in a fight, she goes, "Here comes Lindsay," and I'm like, "Don't do that! Don't do that! Stop it! Why would you refer to yourself like that?"
Well, if you're bad, I suppose it's justified, but it can get annoying.
Being annoying is not justified in a game like this.
It's one of Bard's powers, isn't it?
But yeah, I suppose bards are supposed to be annoying, but
yeah.
But there are a couple other characters in it as well, and I was just kind of like, I'm so annoyed with this.
You said 10. Sorry, can I just ask, because this is actually a major sort of difference between various games in this genre, as you said. Is it 10-based or is it real-time?
It is real-time.
Okay.
Which is an interesting thing, because it being a Pathfinder game, Pathfinder RPG tabletop combat, you know, is very, you know, you take your turn before somebody else does anything. And in this, it's real time.
So you pause, you select actions, you unpause, stuff like that.
Yeah, basically.
Right.
And they try and sort of like use the initiative order that Pathfinder has, but that just really means when the combat starts, how quickly you're going to do the thing that you want to do. And then there's like a sort of timer that just keeps going round.
Yeah.
But it is essentially just real time. People will just keep doing stuff until you tell them to do something else.
Yeah.
They will auto attack. So like if my wizard, if I try and, you know, cast a spell, let's say I cast a snowball or whatever it is on an enemy, he'll do that once and then he'll go back to using his main weapon, and he'll just keep doing that, which is a crossbow for my wizard. But that sort of like the real-time combat, I thought, oh, that's interesting, but sometimes it is really chaotic. Like, sometimes it's really hard to tell what is going on. Like, in a turn-based game, you know, you can stop and you can say, right, this character's going to move over here, nobody else is doing anything while that character moves over there, and then he's going to, like, you know, shoot his bow, or he's going to cast this spell and nobody else does anything well. In this game, it's like, I can set my wizard and say, right, you blind that person, and while he's casting that spell, other people are all just doing all their other things, and by the time he's finished casting that spell, this thing he was aiming at is dead. You know, and it's some of that sort of stuff is just kind of like, maybe that's me playing the game badly. I don't know.
I think it is.
But you've got so many characters to keep track of, so you've got a full squad of characters. So like at one point in the beginning section, there's 6 people in your squad at one point in the beginning part of the game. The part of the game I'm at now, there's only 4. But you can get more people as the game goes on, by the looks of it. Like, I've met someone who offers to like give me one of their soldiers or something for 1,000 gold or whatever. Or 2,000, I can't remember, but I have the money at the time, so I didn't take it. But I was also like, I don't really want to take it because I don't want another character to have to deal with. Because if you know what Pathfinder's like, so like a wizard, for example, has not just the spells that you've picked, but also all these cantrips. So you've got this massive, from the beginning of the game, you've got this massive row of abilities to use, and you're just sitting there going, well, I don't know what to do. But then I've also got this bard character who also has this massive row of abilities. And then, but then I've got like Amiri on my team, the Barbarian, she has like 2 abilities. And they're just like, that's better. You know? Just send her in, use her rage power, that's it. Everybody's dead. So yeah, the combat's a wee bit chaotic. I think maybe it's just going to take me a wee bit of time to get used to it. But it's actually picking up a lot more since I went back and played it. Once I got past that sort of beginning bit, once I trudged, you know, with these RPGs, there's that initial
learning curve.
Not just learning curve, but also talking to the various people in your party, learning all their backstory and everything. Some of that can be a wee bit tedious when you have to do the entire party at once, and you're there for like 45 minutes just reading like walls of text and choosing choices and
listening to Lindsay.
Yeah, listening to Lindsay. Thankfully, that bit of the game, it didn't use the voice acting on that, so I could just read it. But but no, like once you get past all of that sort of stuff, there's like an interesting encounter where you're like defending a town that you've been sent to. Because what you're actually doing is that you're heading out into this place called the Stolen Lands, where you are going to go there and become the king. Basically, you're going to just take over this place. It's been like there's bandits all over the place. There's a bandit lord and all this sort of stuff. So you're going to go there, clear the entire place out, and then sort of put yourself on the throne almost.
So conquering somebody.
So I wouldn't say it's conquering, because it's like the Stolen Lands are kind of like there's nothing really there. It's just bandits.
This is a very, very imperialistic approach.
Well, yeah, and the weird thing is that there's another sort of kingdom that are letting you do this. It's them that send you out to do it, because they're just like, yeah, we would rather have you there than a bunch of bandits. So off you go. Here's some money. Here's some equipment. On you go.
There is Australia.
Yeah, there's Australia. There you go. So this is the whole thing, and then on the way to doing this, like you go to this little town, and then you speak to people there. And what I've really enjoyed about this game is that, like, you know, compared to something like Divinity, for example, is that a lot of your skills in that really matter in this game. So like, you're talking to various people, and you can persuade the old frail alchemist that lives in this town to join in this fight against the bandits that's about to happen when the bandits are coming to attack this town, basically. And if you manage to persuade this guy to do it during the fight, he's throwing alchemist fire everywhere. Like, but willy-nilly he's throwing it. He's burning your own characters, but he's throwing it. It's going everywhere, and he's killing people. So it's like, and that's useful. Like, so like that whole ability is like useful in this game, and also stuff like perception and like you know, like your knowledge skills, something that.
It's rare in games in general, and in games of this type in particular, to have skills that aren't just combat based to be useful in various stages of the game, including combat, but also outside of combat. Yeah,
they're useful and they have an impact in the game. And also, on top of that, the choices you make in this game are important as well. Right, more so. And I've only played a little bit of the game. I don't know if this is going to peter off a bit towards the end of the game. You tend to find sometimes in games like this that it's really exciting at the start. Oh, these things really matter, and then towards the end of the game, it doesn't really matter so much. But like choices that you make in dialogues, you know how in like the Pathfinder system they use that D&D alignment system. So you've got like lawful, neutral, chaotic, good, all that sort of stuff. The choices you make in this game start to change your alignment.
Alright.
So like if you start giving people abuse when they're asking you for help, it'll come up and say you've chosen a chaotic evil option, and then you can look at your alignment thing and it shows you how it's changing.
Oh, that's
so
neat.
Like almost like what was that Star Wars game that did that when you were like light side and dark side? And...
Yeah, there was stuff like this, and in Mass Effect you had your Paragon.
Yeah,
and
there you go.
Renegade.
Yeah. So it's kind of similar to that, except that it's a multifaceted thing. So like your things moving along around this circle basically, just as you make different choices.
And does that also then affect, I don't know, a range of your available options in conversations?
Yes. So your conversation options will change depending on your alignment as well. So you may not be able to do certain things based on your alignment, which is true to the Pathfinder system. You know, games masters are encouraged to almost punish people for doing stuff outside of their alignments. So yeah, it matters. And it also, like, there's a part of the game, and I don't know, I think that what happens in this part of the game is depending on the choices you've made in the first part of the game, it changes the group that you get. So there's like different characters that will come with you. So basically you split into two groups. There's this little bastard of a gnome who basically he wants to take the Stolen Lands for himself, and he thinks he's the leader. And you're like, no, I'm the leader. So you split into two groups, and the people that are there will choose to go with one or the other, but it's based upon the choices you made in the game up until that point.
Because some of your companions will be more inclined to go with you depending on your alignment.
Yeah.
Right.
Alignment and the choices that you've made up until that point.
Okay.
So it's actually important what you do because it changes the way that the people in the game see you. So
That's pretty nice.
I quite like that because other games have attempted this, and at the moment, I mean, this is still in my eyes an attempt at it because I haven't really seen the full outcome of what happens based on these choices, how open-ended it actually is. But I'm enjoying it so far. I have ended up with a strange group because of this. Like, I didn't get I really wanted the cleric to come with me. He was one of the people whose voice acting wasn't that annoying. He was a dwarf cleric. He sounded like a Northern Englishman.
What?
Sounded like he's from
Dwarves
Yorkshire
always
or
sound
something.
like Scotsmen.
But he didn't come with me. But instead I ended up with Amiri the Barbarian. I've got the Lindsay the Bard.
Aww.
And I have a female sort of ex-paladin. She's basically a fighter now. Who was supposed to go down a paladin route but ended up just, leaving because she didn't like the church. And actually one of the conversations I had with her was actually one of the most interesting ones because it's the kind of... She's talking about one of the gods in the Pathfinder game called Shaylin, I think she's called, and she's like the goddess of art and craft and all that, and the followers of Shaylin are supposed to make art every single day, and she was just like, fuck this. She's just like, art is useless, I want to just fight. So, you've got this like mad... She's a tower shield specialist in the game, so she's your main tank.
That's the tank then,
so I've got this sort of really melee heavy front line, and then
an illusionist,
and a bard standing behind them. so I've got a strange party, but I kind of like it. It's kind of working for me, even though Lindsay's voice is still annoying. There is a nice bit in the game as well, where some of the bits of the game are actually told through a storybook.
Okay.
And you make choices in there. So instead of actually, like, there's a part where you have to run through fire to get through, like, a burning building, basically. Instead of actually making you play that out in a video game style, it just comes up with a bunch of choices that you'll make. Like, what will you do? Will you douse yourself with water? Will you cover your mouth? Will you just charge through? And then the choices you make there will have an impact on what happens next.
Yeah.
So I quite like that as well. The way that they sort of shifted into that and then back out to the other side of it was pretty cool. So yeah, I mean that's all I can really tell you about it just now without giving massive amounts of the story away. I mean, I have pretty much told you everything there is. I mean, once you get past this first bit of the game and you actually get sent out to go towards the Stolen Lands, you get put onto a map, which you can then navigate through different paths on the map.
So this is where the game is going to open for you.
Yeah.
Rather than right.
And one of the cool things is your little piece on the map is like to represent your group. It's just a little miniature that just sort of moves along, and if you get a random encounter, there's just like a monster miniature just drops onto the board, and if you defeat it, it just knocks over.
Aww,
and rolls about. So yeah, there's a nice little nod to tabletop RPGs there. But yeah, I mean, I do want to go back and play it, which is important, because after that sort of first initial hour of playing it, I felt no real desire to go back and play it. And I made myself do it. I was just kind of like, no, I have to give this game a proper chance. I've put money into this game on Kickstarter. I want to actually see how it goes. And I'm glad I did, because it has kind of opened up a bit more for me. My characters are now level 3, I think they are. So I've leveled up a couple of times. And you have to do all that manually. I think there is an option to auto-level, but
who wants to do that?
To auto-level? You don't want to auto-level. And basically, as soon as you make one change to the auto level, it doesn't let you auto level anymore at all after that. It's like, no, you change one thing, that's it. You're on your own now. So, yeah. I'm enjoying it. I am enjoying it.
I think one of the reasons why I've initially decided not to play it just yet, apart from obviously just wanting to play the other game of the same type but better, was the fact that I don't think my PC coped that well with it. My
laptop's a few years old now. I'm getting 30 frames a second on it.
Right.
I think at first it wasn't that high. I think it was like struggling to get 25. But for some reason it seems to have settled at 30.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's just that initial part of the game that's kind of a bit crappy for that, but
no, I'll have another look, definitely, because it does definitely sound like my kind of game, and as much as
it is your kind of game.
I find it very hard to believe that anything could ever approach the genius of Pillars of Eternity too, but anything is welcome to try. And fail and still be good. So there you go. I'll have a look.
No, well, you definitely should, Pablo, because it's got all the things that you want. It's got lore. It's got character development. You know.
Yeah.
It's
got Lindsay.
You've got Lindsay.
Yeah.
You've got to go and build a kingdom.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to build a kingdom? Yeah.
Just out of interest, when you made your character, what did you go?
I didn't actually complete.
Right.
I've turned the game on. I started making the character. I've realized, oh my god, there is so much stuff here from this. Well, Pathfinder is one of those classic RPGs with all the stereotypical Dungeons and Dragons trappings, and I had to sort of reverse my way of thinking about things like this in order to create a character that I could feel I want to play. So I thought it's a task for another day.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so yes, that is Pathfinder Kingmaker. That is developed by Owlcat Games, and it came out officially on the 25th of September 2018. You can get it on Steam if you want it. Okay, Dave.
Hello.
Let's revisit Metal Gear Solid 5.
Ooh.
Oi. This is our AAA entry for today's episode.
Well, it is. I would say it is a AAA game. But that's kind of what I've been doing on my PlayStation 4.
Playing AAA games.
Yeah, because I only got it recently, I've been trying to go back and catch up with...
You're catching up with the commercial side of the hobby.
Yeah, the big names, like I'm going to play Horizon at some point as well. And things,
you definitely should.
Things like that. Oh, Pawel approves.
Oh, no, but I've just realised that you're only going to play it so that you can hate it.
That's not true. I can't guarantee I'll like it, though.
I found out who has...
oh, yes.
The Last Guardian. I found out who has it, Dave, so you can have a loan of that.
Oh, so
you play that as well.
You were also accused of basically Chris...
No, Dave wants to play it.
Ah,
and
so
I have
there's
a
a chain
of
of... Alright.
Yeah, that's another one.
I had no idea who had it last.
I was on the receiving end of accusations.
Yep. Well,
if you don't know where your game is, just blame the Pole.
Yeah. Because he's probably
the one.
He's probably installed it onto his PlayStation.
Yep.
And then put it in a cupboard.
And then given me the game back.
I had to defend myself vigorously before I was deemed innocent.
Well, for those who don't know, Metal Gear Solid 5 is the fifth mainstream, mainline entry in a long-running series of games going way, way back to the MSX console. God knows when, in the 80s, I guess. But really rose to prominence in 98, I think it was, when Metal Gear Solid came out on the PlayStation. So that was Metal Gear Solid 1, I suppose. And so now we're up to 5. And that came out in 2015, I think.
Yeah,
so it's
it must be about that, yeah.
A couple of years old now. It's
a part of religion, isn't it? Kojimaism, I think it's called.
Yeah, by Hideo Kojima in his studio and Konami. And it's just about everybody knows, but for those who don't, it's a stealth-based third-person game. Tactical espionage action, they called it in the first one.
With balloony extraction of enemies.
Yes. Have you played any of them, Pawel?
I've seen videos of balloons.
That's not the same.
What?
Watching a video of something does not count.
So is that your ecstatica thing again?
I will second this.
I have not played any of those games, and therefore I might not be considered an authority.
Right.
I must still make comments.
I just wondered. I was a huge fan of these games, the first sort of four main ones, and I played a number of the spin-offs on the PSP and such as well, like a lot. And it was kind of strange that I didn't play Metal Gear Solid 5, but I think when they did the fourth one, it was such a swan song to the series in every way. It took everything that was Metal Gear Solid, because it has a very distinct feel and identity of its own. It's this whole world of like global politics and espionage and covert military actions, and you've got governments, and then you've got government agencies, and you've got private military contractors, and they've all got their own agendas, and then you've got all these individuals who are vying for like power and money or control. In some senses, control of the entire, like the destiny of the entire world. So there's these very kind of grand themes. There's like stuff about nuclear proliferation, AI and AI control of what people think about or how people think about the world. All that is in Metal Gear, and then on top of that, it's just
sounds very cool.
These very sort of seemingly serious and themes, and then just silliness as well. Like all the characters have crazy names, like Revolver Ocelot, and he's one of the main, very important characters, and Decoy Octopus, and well, it's Solid Snake, and his, you know, in Metal Gear Solid, his nemesis is called Liquid Snake.
Obviously, if you're a solid snake,
yeah, but it makes sense because it turns out they're actually clones of each other who are cloned from
Gas Snake.
No, you would think. I was having
this.
Having this conversation with my girlfriend.
Plasma Snake.
I was like, so obviously there's Solid and Liquid Snake, but it turns out, and they're clones, so they're sort of brothers. It's les enfants terribles, as you had said when we spoke about this, because we have spoken about this game before.
Yes. You have to go all the way back to episode 6 to hear about this.
I had to re-listen to it, and very good it was too. Yeah, but you find out that they've actually got there's a third brother who you don't know about. You find out in later games in Metal Gear Solid 2. You find out about this third one. And he's not called Gas. He's called Solidus.
Solid what?
Us. Solidus.
Solidus.
Yeah. Just it's so arbitrary. And he's the third clone, except he's now the president of the United States.
He's the same president of the United States as in Ni no Kuni 2.
It's very possible. In Metal Gear Solid 2, Solidus has this sort of powered armor with like 4 tentacle, like mechanical arms that come out the back, a bit like Dr. Octopus, just because he just does, and he's like your the main antagonist of the second game, and it's just so over the top and ridiculous. And the fourth one, and this is what I loved about it, I should say, I mean, in case that wasn't clear, I mean, if ever there was a game that was made for me, the Metal Gear Solid series of games are it. Because every time I play them, I'm just like, yep, everything about this game, this is the kind of thing I like. From when I played, I mean, I didn't play the ones on the MSX, but when I played Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation, the moment I discovered the cardboard box that you could hide in, and you know about the cardboard box, Pawel.
Is this like the Skyrim barrel on the head thing?
Sort of, but like pretty early on in the game, you find this item, the cardboard box, and you can equip it, and he just hides inside the box because it's a stealth game.
Yeah.
And you can use this to assist you. It's one of the tools you can use in avoiding the guards. So, like, if a guard, if a guard,
so it's a remote cover thing.
Yeah, you would hide inside it, and then the guard might see the box, and he'd come over to have a little look in the first one, and he'd kind of look at it, and then sometimes he would just go, "It's just a box," and he would wander off again. But you can move around when you're in it. So he sort of scoots around inside the box. You see his little legs sticking out the bottom, and you run around, and you can go into first person mode and peek through the handles. And obviously, if the guards see the box running about, then they're not so easily fooled.
Are they not? Okay.
No, but you can. When I realised, I was like, if I wanted to, I could play this entire game inside the box.
Which you probably should.
I was like, well, yep.
Did you know there's a strange homage to this in Divinity Original Sin?
Okay.
You did play the first
I've
Divinity
played
Original Sin. They did the same thing in the second. So if you go into stealth mode in Divinity Original Sin,
yes,
it being a fantasy RPG,
yep,
these kind of games don't normally do this stuff. You go into stealth mode in these, you tend to just fade into the shadows, or you start sneaking about or something. Yeah. In Divinity Original Sin, you go into stealth mode, they put a barrel over you.
Well, they put different things on you, I think, depending on your...
It just depends on where you are. but it's just utterly bizarre. And it's clearly acknowledged.
This was one of my first
Solid.
experiences of what sort of game Divinity is, when I realised that it's just going to be this barrel of bush or stone. Sometimes I think it was a piece of rock. Just the aesthetics. So Dave, what sort of mixture, what sort of cocktail proportions do you normally go for in your games between realism and absurd?
It's not the absurdness.
What's the best sort of proportion here?
I guess 50-50, because that's what... But everything about Metal Gear Solid is absurd, and that's what makes it so good. It's that contrast of these weighty themes and then this ridiculous soap opera that they lay on top of it. But instead of, being like in EastEnders about people arguing about their family and like, unwanted pregnancies and someone coming out as being gay or whatever, they're like soldiers and politicians and scientists
and tentacly presidents.
Yeah, and like and cyborg ninjas, but they have the same problem.
This is the reason why Dave, he can't just play a fishing game. He has to play Russian nuclear fishing.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, of course, because fishing would be just too weighty.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, I loved Metal Gear Solid 4. I'm kind of in the minority in this. I think a lot of people weren't super keen on it, but basically that game was made for people like me, who were just so into the previous games and the whole, like, it starts out like a normal game, sneaking around as you do in Metal Gear Solid, hiding from soldiers. You can knock them out stealthily, drag their corpses around, hide them in lockers, that sort of thing, and you're doing all the usual stuff. It's very story based in Metal Gear Solid 4, but you're trying to find out this big conspiracy and assassinate Liquid Ocelot.
Okay.
But about halfway through, they just totally dispense with most of that, and it just becomes one long cutscene.
Fantastic.
And
well, just cutscene, or
effectively, yes.
All right.
And it's just all this stuff. I mean, you find this resistance leader who's called Big Mama.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who's in? You go to somewhere in Eastern Europe, and she's there, and she's leading the resistance, and you meet up with her.
That's how it works in Eastern Europe, man.
After undergoing a sort of film noir style stealth section where you're like wearing a trench coat and making your way through this Eastern European city at night, from there's like street lights and stuff, totally from nowhere, very out of like nothing they've ever done before. And eventually you meet up with Big Mama, and then stuff happens, and then it turns out that she's actually a character from way back, a major character from way back in the games who disappeared and was presumed dead, but now we're off in the future, 2014 or whatever it was meant to be. And that's who she is, and you're like, oh my goodness, it's like fan service. It's like, I remember this person. You're like, oh, it's a big reveal. And then it turns out you're playing Solid Snake in this one. It turns out she's actually your mum.
Ah.
But because you're a clone, she's like your surrogate. So she's not your biological mother.
Oh my god, I'm beginning to realise why you've mentioned EastEnders and this sort of thing. This sounds like some
family
sort of
drama.
Espionage soap.
Yeah.
Soap.
But then you find out what she's doing is what she's doing now is guarding the dismembered body of the guy, Big Boss, who you, Solid Snake, had been cloned from.
I'm sorry. So Big Mama is guarding dismembered body of Big Boss.
Yeah, because they had a bit of a thing in one of the previous games in Metal Gear Solid 3. They had this was way back in the 70s, I think it's or possibly even slightly earlier. So they were on opposing sides, and she was like a Russian spy, and she sort of took advantage of them. They had a bit of a tryst, Big Boss and Eva,
Big Mama.
Eva, who then went on to become Big Mama. But it was like he was our enemy, but she was like the only man he really ever respected, even though they were on opposing sides. Anyway, it turns out, I mean, Big Boss is we thought he was dead, but he is still alive, but he just doesn't, he's just sort of burned, like, he has no arms and no legs, and but Big Mama's looking after him, and he's, that's what she's dedicated the remainder of her life to.
Goodness me.
And then she dies in a fire. So it goes on. It just kept adding more and more and more, and I loved it so much. And this is why I never played Metal Gear Solid 5, because I was like, nothing can ever eclipse that. It was meant to be the end of the series, but so I was like, nothing can come close to that. But having played Metal Gear Solid 5, we'll get back to that now.
Good, it's only taken 15 minutes.
It's surprising how much of a...
What's surprising is how much you're into this. I've not seen your face light up that much this often.
I didn't think I would like it. But you know what? It is actually... Although it's different, and they set out to make a different kind of game, and it's not meant to really be like the others, it kind of still has the things that are necessary for it to be a Metal Gear Solid game.
Because those games differ quite a lot, mostly because they spaced out chronologically quite a lot. So I've not played any of them, but I've seen videos from each, and each of them is sort of a different kind of game, yeah?
In a way, yes. I know what you mean.
They're all stealth-based.
They're all stealth-based, but the thing is, and what you're saying is true, but they always have these core things, like you were talking earlier before we started recording about chocobos in Final Fantasy.
Yeah. And balloons in Metal Gear Solid.
Well, not balloons, but there are key things that go through all the games, and they won't necessarily be in every game, but it's very self-referential. And Metal Gear Solid 5 is no exception to that. So it's full of references. Even though it is not ridiculous story-based like I described, like Metal Gear Solid 4, it's completely the opposite. It's like an open world, very mission-based game, very much like a conventional game you would imagine. There is a story in it, but it's quite light, and you're actually playing a game in this one, whereas in the others you were arguably playing a story. But it's still full of amazing references, so I still love it. So, like, your character that you play in this one, who's called Punished Snake,
is a clone.
But one of the... Well, I don't know yet, because I haven't finished it. I'm only halfway through, but one of the things is he has a prosthetic arm. And this ties into the Phantom Pain, which is the name of the sort of tagline for Metal Gear Solid 5. But him having an arm missing ties back to Metal Gear Solid, where the first boss you fight, Revolver Ocelot, very early in the game, a very sort of strange and odd boss fight, but you just run around shooting him in the corners of the room. It's very bizarre, but once you finish it, it's interrupted by the cyborg ninja who turns up and cuts off Revolver Ocelot's arm, which is a big issue for him because he's like a gunfighter and he dresses as a cowboy even though he's Russian.
Okay.
So like he gets his arm cut off, and so it's like a reference back to that. Like at a later point, he has the arm of the main boss in Metal Gear Solid, Liquid Snake. Revolver Ocelot has Liquid Snake's arm grafted onto his body. And then the spirit of Liquid Snake sort of takes over.
All right. No, I can see this. Yes.
So it's still there. Like, you have an eye missing, which is a reference to Big Boss, who has a missing
There's a lot
eye.
of dismemberment going on in those games.
And like, at one point you get a dog in this game, which is amazing. Love the dog. That's a whole new thing, and it's very good. And you can use him during the missions to assist you. He sniffs out enemies for you, and he can take out enemies either stealthily or violently. And he's just cool to have around. He barks and stuff.
Is he mortal though, or she? Because that's important.
He can't.
The
die.
dog meat problem involved.
No, he can be disabled temporarily.
Right, there you go.
Yeah, it is quite distressing when it happens. You want to avoid that.
I can't even use dog meat in Fallout because even if he gets just injured, the sound it makes, it's like, I just can't take it.
Yeah, well, it's a bit like that in this game as well. But you could still have him passively.
Sorry, I was just... I don't want to ruin the game for you, Dave, but I'm just going to just to add more to the soap opera thing, I just want to pass Pawel this and see what his reaction is. Don't you read it. Other side. Don't you read it, Dave.
Really?
I've just revealed the identity of Venom Snake.
Oh yeah,
Pawel.
no, that's okay. I mean, I don't know that, but it's made kind of obvious that there's something going on. I mean, he's got a different name for a start. Because, yeah, I mean, I won't go into it, but yeah, there is a thing going on in this game.
Can I just say,
but that's
definitely a soap opera.
Yeah,
I don't watch soap operas. I mean, the closest I ever get to watching soap operas is some sort of Big Bang Theory, and the sentence I've just been handed with a major story spoiler is not something I ever expected to read today or this year.
Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, that's another example. So it's still a
bizarre
Metal
game.
Gear Solid. Like Metal Gear Solid 2, it's essentially all a dream. So you know, it's not, but it kind of is.
What's happening?
This is like Dallas or whatever it was. Was it Dallas where that happened?
It's not a dream. Like, if only it were that simple. It's much more complex than that. And I don't think I've been through. There was a thing called the Metal Gear Solid database that they gave you on the PlayStation 3 that gave you. It was like an interactive encyclopedia of all things Metal Gear Solid. So you could look up each of the characters and see their connections with each other. There was a graph. Even after going through that, I still wasn't convinced that I could really understand what was going on in its entirety, especially the second game.
I've just remembered I actually did have an experience with Metal Gear Solid franchise. There was a demo recently of some sort of online thing.
That's
and
not
some sort of zombies with crystals instead of head, and you had some sort of spear, and I've switched it off after 5 minutes.
Yeah, I can't remember what that's called, but I know what you're talking about. That's something that Konami produced after Kojima.
Oh, it's post-Kojima stuff. Right, gotcha.
Yeah. I haven't played that, but
hopefully it was just as or partially as bizarre as what you're talking
I'm sure
about.
it will have some bonkers aspects in it. I'm sure.
I had no idea what was going there.
It won't have the story side of it, but there will be.
Even gameplay wise, my brain refused to.
In Metal Gear Online before, there used to be a thing for like launching soldiers across the battlefield and stuff. I mean,
on balloons.
No. I mean,
this is my favorite feature of the franchise.
It's hard to not enjoy the Fulton recovery mechanism, which is what you're referring to.
The balloon.
It's not a feature of the franchise. It came in Peace Walker, but they which was on the PSP, but they kept it for Metal Gear Solid 5.
Because why wouldn't you?
And yeah, that's how you capture soldiers to add to your army. But
you add them to your army on the balloons.
Yeah, there's a whole sort of army management, base management. It's very light, but it's in there as well, and it's kind of fun. It's not a big part of the game, but it goes on in the background, and it's basically a way to generate money, which you then use to research new toys that you can use in the single player game. But the best thing about it, to my mind, is that you can also Fulton recover other things. And animals in particular are the highlight of it.
Oh, so you put chickens and snakes on balloons?
Every time you complete a mission, your buddy who's with you, who could be your horse, D-horse, or your dog, D-dog, you get on the helicopter, which will be playing your theme tune of choice from your cassette of 80s music.
Which you can select from.
Yeah,
I'm going to select an 80s song.
At the moment, I was rocking Take On Me for quite a while, but it's
a good choice.
It's Too Shy now by.
That's a great choice.
I just found that earlier today. So you get on your helicopter, and it's like being in a Vietnam movie. It's very detailed, and then if you look carefully to where your buddy is in the battlefield, you'll see him have a balloon attached to him and get launched up into the sky. And if it's the little dog, he'll kind of be hanging there, his little tail wagging, suspended, and then he shoots off really quickly. He goes,
And the whole time it's going, too shy, hush, hush.
And you can call them in the middle of the mission as well. I mean, it never gets boring. Like, you switch buddies, so like your horse gets ballooned away, and then you're like, I'm going to use the dog for a bit. It gets dropped in, so you can see him like coming in across the battlefield, like suspended from the balloon. It's like, and he lands next to you.
Oh my god!
And, like, you can capture animals as well. So I caught a bear, and Fulton recovered the bear, and it makes an appropriate noise as it's hanging by one paw from the balloon. That will never get old.
I might just I think I'm speechless by now.
So yeah,
Dave, I love how you play games.
Yeah, I mean,
it's great.
I really really like this game, and I'm so glad I went back to playing it. And the other thing is, I mean, we're probably running out of time, I imagine, but it's also a good game, and this was such a surprise to me. Like, I cannot stress how impressed I am with the mechanics of this game. It's not what I expected. I mean, the Metal Gear Solid games have always been very featureful. They've always given you all these cool things that you can do, but they never really gave you the game in which to use them properly. When Metal Gear Solid 2 came out, they had all these neat things that they'd added from the previous games. Like, soldiers had radios, and they would make radio calls. Okay, that's fine, but if you were quick, you could shoot the radio that they had in their hand, and then they would try and use it, and then like they would shake it. They'd be like confused, they'd be like, "What's going on?" and not be able to make your radio call. Nobody ever did that in the game, because the game just didn't give you the sandbox in which to try all this stuff. And Metal Gear Solid 5 does. It's a total sandbox. It gives you all these toys to play with, and yes, it's mission based, but you can approach these missions in all these different ways.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And it's like play. Like, I find myself, it reminds me of being a kid in playing soldiers. Mm-hmm. Because I will do stuff that's not necessary. Because you can just run in and kill everybody. And it's very easy to do. You just run in and shoot everyone and they're all dead, and then you're like, okay, I can blow up the thing that I'm here to blow up. But that's boring. You can come up with like much more interesting ways to try and achieve your objectives. And that's what I find myself doing. Like, there's like a primary example. You can call in resupply, and you do it from your little PDA thing that you have, and you say, I want more ammo dropped here. But later on, you can research a flare grenade that you throw, and the supplies come in to where the flare grenade goes. That's completely pointless, because you could already do it from your PDA. It offers no benefit whatsoever. But I still use the flare grenades because I like to pretend that I'm like a soldier and I'm calling in supplies, and I'm like, yeah, this is way cooler. It's like, it's a little flare and smoke comes off it and it's bright, and then my supplies come in and land next to it. And sometimes they arrive in a massive box that you climb inside. It's so much fun.
You're making me really want to play this game, Dave, because I never really played much of the Metal Gear Solid games, and I don't know why. I felt like I couldn't really jump in the middle of it because I missed out on the first one. Well, I felt like kind of difficult to jump in, but I think Metal Gear Solid 5, because it's a prequel, isn't it? So
it is, but it doesn't really. The stories that come before don't matter. I mean, I'm saying it's got, like your dog's got an eye patch in this game. That's what I was trying to get to. That's going to mean nothing to people who've not played the game before, but it doesn't matter. Like, the game is enjoyable on its own, and I think the only thing with it really is that it's a stealth game, and there's kind of a limit ultimately to what you can do with these kind of games, especially with this military setting. I mean, I'm saying there's all these different ways you can approach it, and that's true. But ultimately, at the end,
there's going to be a limit. Apart from Red Dead Redemption 2 that's upcoming, which seems to be limitless.
Well, in this, you're doing one of five, like maybe five things. You're either killing someone, rescuing someone, blowing something up, sabotaging something, or recovering an item. That's it. Mm-hmm. Like, it's always going to be. I mean, there's, apart from the silly boss fights that are story based, you're always doing one of those five things, really. So
but that's your goals, but you can approach them.
You can do them all different ways, and you can come up with fun ways. Like, you can you're like, because there is an intelligence and a lot of scripting to it, so, you're not just rescuing someone who's always in the same place. They'll be a prisoner, but they'll start somewhere, and maybe they're like, oh, we're going to move this prisoner at some point, or they might take them somewhere for interrogation. So you can either wait for them to be their final destination, or you're like, maybe if I'm quick, I can intercept them while they're in a vehicle. So that's a different type of approach you're taking.
Mm-hmm.
You can be like, well, okay, I'm going to try getting my horse to poop on the bridge before the prisoner transport appears, because that causes the cars to skid out, and then you can take advantage of the confusion.
Does the horse shit on command?
Yes.
I was just going to ask, how exactly do you make him or her do it?
Well, you have a sort of affinity, a bond with your different buddies, and
it's a very strange bond.
As you become closer, it unlocks new abilities, and I think that's
the ability to shit on command.
Yep. Do it, it's called.
I think we may have piqued my understanding of this franchise. Thank you.
But it's optional, though.
I should hope so.
It's not a requirement for the game.
Red Dead Redemption 2, try that.
Pavel, you haven't even tried that. It's not out yet.
But obviously we all know that this is going to be a scarily huge game when it comes to sandbox.
Well, back to Metal Gear Solid, though. Does this? So now that Dave has explained this game to you and its soap opera beauty, do you feel you want to play it?
Not really.
I always
no.
like asking you these questions.
Not really, no. No, I tend to avoid unnecessarily
Enjoying
large
yourself.
concentrations of absurdity.
Well, why are you here then?
Mostly to just try and spread my elitism around.
Yeah.
Is that the word?
I mean, it's not for you, but I was going to say there are a few other games that are as dedicated to their lore as this one.
I definitely have a lot of respect to
Yes.
that. Yes, I do like a story-based game. And I've watched a fair amount of anime, and you're going to have quite a lot of absurd stuff in animes as well, so this sounds sort of like it.
Okay, right, we definitely need to move forward here. So that is Metal Gear Solid, but generally just most of the series that Dave has talked about there, but Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain is what Dave's been playing, and that's by Kojima Productions and Konami.
Is Kojima the guy that's making Death Stranding now, yes?
Yep.
Because this is going to, well, from the look of trailers, this is going to be my first real venture into Kojima's imagination.
Yep, well, nobody knows what that's going to be like.
I suppose this is a fair assumption, yes.
If it ever,
Nobody knows.
nobody's entirely sure it will ever happen, so
Yep.
we'll have to wait and see.
Right, cool.
Okay, Pavel,
Hello.
we've not got a lot of time left.
Yeah,
But
of course.
We're still going to let you talk about the game you've been playing, so come on, hit us.
There we go. Why not? Let's put me at the last spot.
You'll get special RPG slot in the next board games episode.
Right, well, okay, cool. No, I can roll with that. That's fine. Right, so I'll be fast then. I'm going to talk about a small but fairly pleasant game called Ruiner. Ruiner? Ruiner.
Ruiner.
Let's have a rolling R here. Ruiner. There you go. Which is a cyberpunk game. So that obviously already means that it's much better than any other game it would otherwise be. Ruiner is made by Devolver Digital, and it's been actually released a good year ago, but I've only recently really picked it up. Actually, I've picked it up on Steam, couldn't play it. The controls absolutely defeated me. The way your standard WSAD worked for movement versus your mouse for characters sort of facing was just bizarre, and it was awkward, and it was just not working. But I've enjoyed what I saw enough to actually purchase the game on PS4 and play it again there, where it seemed with two joysticks to, as in the controller, to work so much better. Ruiner is essentially a shooter game with the overhead perspective. Although when I say shooter, it mostly just feels like a button mashing, very dynamic sort of. I don't know if you can call it melee bullet hell. Does that make sense? there's a lot of enemies all around you with various skills, exploding, shooting at you. You do have a projectile weapon, and you do pick up stronger projectile weapons with essentially each of them with one clip. You don't really reload in this game. But you quickly drop it. There might just be other weapons dropped by your enemies, so you do pick them up. But most of the time, you tend to sort of rely on your various skills to very quickly move around the various stages you're fighting in, and you're just constantly surrounded by enemies that you bash to death with your melee weapon, whatever it is, whether it's a pipe, whether it's some sort of, again, upgraded weapon that quickly deteriorates and you lose it. So in terms of gameplay, in terms of what's the game about, it's quite arcadey, and it would be a forgettable game, I think, if not for the fact that I think it may have actually picked up a little bit of a cult status amongst people that like cyberpunk, because everybody does, obviously, because it's got quite a dedicated soundtrack. I think you could call it synthwave, or if there's a genre like this, which is actually rather impressive, and I'm a layman when it comes to music in general, and music like this in particular, and I quite enjoy it, and I think it's really well crafted. And that's the same goes for art. So this game, this game is a collection of cyberpunk tropes, and it's even sort of aware of it. The game itself, it doesn't try to craft anything original or unique. It's rather just taking all the staples from cyberpunk, which itself is really a collection of tropes, and it's just maxing it up to the top. So there is some absurdity there. Yes, you essentially, I should say that you play as a faceless, nameless, really, protagonist that doesn't even speak, because he or she, I suppose he, is probably barely alive, or most of the time sort of half remotely controlled by a hacker. Eventually, you break off from your digital chains, but it's just another hacker taking control of your sort of body and giving you directions and blah. So you've got a mask on you. Your character, your protagonist, has got a mask on you, and the only way the protagonist can speak out his mind is with various projections on his holographic mask. But anyway, my point is, every 30 seconds during the tutorials, your entire screen fades away, and you get this face of whatever hacker is controlling you, that's giving you your directions, which is essentially kill boss. And you hear this every 30 seconds, with this techno music. It's almost psychedelic, and it's supposed to be this way. And at some point, the hacker that originally controlled you gets defeated, and you're sort of on your own, but another hacker who keeps calling you puppy and who keeps sort of speaking in emojis, keeps giving you various quests and information about what to do to, I suppose, save boss of heaven, and things like this. It's tropes. It's a lot of stuff that would probably not really work that well on its own, but because this is just piled up on top of one another, it has quite a lot of cyberpunk charm. And that's pretty much that. The game it can be pretty hard, because you need your reflexes like in any bullet hell game. You've got a lot of skills that you keep developing, redistributing points depending on your playstyle, and there's quite a number of ways you can actually fight in each of those combat situations, and the game is really all about it. Various numbers of enemies just thrown at you, and you just...
But in what ways can you change it? Like the way that you're fighting?
Well, there's going to be a lot of... You have a whole tree of various offensive skills mostly. There is some defensive capabilities, but you either focus on your... I tend to focus on this game on... I can't be bothered picking up various better or worse guns and shooting from the distance, so I've focused on my character having multiple charges of this sort of almost teleportation-like speed ups that launches you through, because as I said, it's from an overhead perspective, so you see quite a lot of battlefield around you. So you just jump towards your enemies just to smack them with your metal pipe, if this is what your melee weapon is, and if you don't pick up anything often enough, then you're just gonna go down to it, because your main weapons are just a metal pipe and a tiny gun called Ruiner. But yeah,
is it a cyber pipe?
It's a metal pipe, so it's got a little bit of cyberpunk in it, because it's metal. But you pick up all sorts of upgraded weapons and just what you would normally see in a Mad Max game or in some sort of cyberpunk film. It's going to be some sort of katanas and you name it. Most of them will deplete very soon.
Why do katanas feature so prominently in
cyberpunk games?
Well, obviously, why not? It's one of the most important aspects of cyberpunk is culture clash, and katana is always seen as this very obviously in the 80s it was seen as a
but I think
exotic.
Tokyo was a big sort of influence on cyberpunk culture, like the
because of
lights,
Neuromancer, so because
and all that sort of stuff. So I think like Japanese culture is a big influence in cyberpunk.
Gibson has started it, or has put a crown on it. So yeah,
sure.
So other than that, it's bizarre within my levels of accepting absurdity, and again, it feels arcadey. It's tongue in cheek. It's very fast, but I think mostly this game is about art style and trance-like music. But yeah, good fun.
This sounds a wee bit like that Neon Chrome game that we played.
Yes, it's the same genre, really. It's just Neon Chrome was all about shooting.
Yeah. And it was a roguelike as well.
Yes. This game is much faster.
Right.
And I suppose, it's still a bigger game if you think. I mean, Neon Chrome was really... I mean, after first few levels, you've sort of seen what the game has to offer. You could develop it slightly more.
Yeah, I mean, it gets progressively harder and the enemies get...
But there was always
annoying.
only one way to really fight. You had to learn how to control your character and how to avoid bullets and
I'm
learn
talking
your
about
enemies.
The similarities are more in the sort of top-down twin-stick sort of shooter thing.
And there's plenty of twin-stick shooters out there, and they can differ quite a lot, because if you think about... what was the one with the Super Earth?
Super Earth?
We've played it a bit, this is the one where you could call down vehicles, and it was all very...
Oh!
What was it called? Something divers. Helldivers.
Helldivers.
It was, again, a very nice game, by the way, but twin sticks.
Yeah,
quite different.
but twin sticks, but that game was supposed to be stupid.
Yes, yeah. So Ruiner isn't trying to be intelligent, but it's good fun. It's much more dynamic than Neon Chrome, and melee features quite heavily. Most of your enemies will be a mixture of shooters or melee attackers, but you have to make your decisions within a split of a second, whether you're shooting, whether you're running away, whether you're attacking, and what sort of skills you're using. It's simple mechanics, but I think it's crafted really well.
Is it just structured in terms of like levels or missions?
You're story-wise, it's like, I think it's the end of 21st century. You're in this Korean slum with your tropey cyberpunk helper characters that progressively tell you how to, I don't know, save your brother, thing that evil corporation has kept, stuff like this. So every exit from your slum sort of hub area is just another, I suppose you could call it a series of rooms in a dungeon, if you think about it this way. It's not an open world. It's more like you go to this particular district of town, and you go through whatever gang hideout, and level after level, you're just beating up enemies that jump you.
I see. Bosses?
Bosses, by all means, yes. With unique-ish fighting strategies for this. But I suppose you should rather call them sub-bosses. There's a lot of sort of characters that are slightly stronger, enough to take a minute or two to beat, and being bigger challenge than anything else before it, but there isn't. It's not God of War with your, massive, huge battles that you have to think about that are very different and very cinematic.
Sure. But I mean, it sounds quite retro in a sense. Would that be fair?
Yes, because I think the concept for the game is retro, and that's. I think somebody even said, sorry, I'm gonna quickly grab here a review that says that. I'm not sure. I've not played this one. Have you guys played Hotline Miami?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is pretty much that with cyberpunk theme mounted on top of it.
It's made by the same people.
Is that right? Ah.
Oh yeah, they published it. But
there you go.
Yeah.
So it's not a rip-off then. It's just it's a sequel in the future. No, it's not. Well, if anything, it's
Hotline
spiritual.
Miami would be different though, because it's just from the descriptions of it's not a twin-stick shooter for a start. So,
Well, yeah.
But yeah, I understand what you're getting at. Why do you think it's become so popular? This game,
Runer.
Yeah.
Soundtrack and art style.
Right, like you were saying.
That's just that. Everything else. I mean, it's as much as it sounds basic. Sometimes it's not the concept behind gameplay, but rather how neatly and tightly it's made. And Runer, once I got to play it on PS4, actually controls really well, and which is important in a game that's all about speed and all about. A tiny error can make you fail at a level, and you have to just reload. So it's a good game, but it's mostly just atmospheric. And cyberpunk, sometimes it's really just like your whatever goth childs, children, whatever you call it. It's all about style. Sorry, hello. So that's me. That's Ruiner.
Thank you very much. That actually sounds quite fun.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that you've talked about a game that I'm interested in.
It's a cyberpunk game. You should have known.
No, I know. Okay, that's Ruiner, which is by Devolver Digital. That came out September 2017.
Yeah.
So it's not as old as we originally thought. Because we thought it was at least a couple of years.
No, it's about a year.
About a year old now. Okay, well, we really have to wrap up now. So that's episode 97.
Oh my god, I need to get a cake for 100.
You need to get a big cake for 100. So yeah, we'll be another 2 episodes before we take a short break before the episode 100 so that we can get all our stuff prepared for it, because we've got some fun things in mind. But we should be back next week. But first of all, we will give you all our internet. So if you want to email us, you can do so at firstplayertoken@gmail.com. That's FIRST playertoken. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube. We have a PSN community. We are on Twitch. We have a Discord, and that's discord.me/firstplayertoken. Our Twitter and Twitch are 1STplayertoken.
Once player token.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
It's like
There's a bit of hesitation there.
Yeah, it was very robotic. Perform on demand, Dave. So yes, it's once player token. And we are part of the Podnose Network.
The UK's leading entertainment podcast network.
You've made it. Well done.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Any news on that front?
Yeah, loads.
Loads. Okay, just Google them.
Okay, cheers, Dave. If you want to go at podnose.com, you will find a big library of podcasts on there, and they're all of high quality because George makes sure that they are. So that's it. We will see you next week, which will probably be another video games episode, but until then, thanks for listening.
Bye.
I've been promised an RPG section. Bye.
Bye.